So what actually happened, the NFLPA released its annual report cards of the teams that the NFL a couple of weeks ago won a grievance over them, basically to tell them to stop, that they were not allowed to release these report cards as it was a CBA violation due to the NFL and the NFLPA having some clause in the current agreement that they would conduct a survey every 3 years, and this was not necessary. So this is what I was curious about, was if the NFLPA would find a way to do it. The answer is yes. They conducted the survey already, and it was leaked to a few people in the media. It was not published through the NFLPA itself, and now everybody has it. And this is good, right? This is a win for the labor. This is a win for freedom. This is what we want to be able to do as workers, is be able to have a voice, to hold our employer accountable, to advocate for meaningful change. And why the NFLPA survey itself is such a great one is you have to look at the turnover in the league and the limited pool of inventory that exists. There's only 32 teams. There are close to 2,000 players inside the NFL itself on each of the rosters. And because they tend to cycle between teams, trades, free agency, all of that, you're getting a really good sample size of how teams operate compared to one another. And that ultimately is really good information that provides a really substantial data set, because the information itself has a true compare and contrast, on top of it being about the experience that players have individually. And we're not going to go through the entire criteria. We're going to look just purely at the team rankings and some other metrics that I kind of looked at as it relates to that. But I will also show you how to go find the survey yourself. The NFLPA has the past ones archived. The most recent one is on more mainstream media outlets. And again, it's good information. It does provide some insights. It also shows where teams choose to want to get better and where some teams choose not to care, and how that does potentially impact them as it relates to winning and losing, because that determines whether or not big name players, coaches, actually want to be a part of that organization. So it's going to look like a screen share. I've got a document typed up. We're going to break down a couple of pieces, and then we will come back right here. Shame on me, I did not mention the drink of the episode. A nod to the Outsider Information newsletter, Firecracker Mint. Crisp, clean, and it has a nice burn at the end. Give it a look-see if you are into the vibe. Okay, so going back to the intro, the reason why I like this survey is, well, I'm pro-survey. I think they're really good ways to get information to help people make informed decisions, but we don't give athletes enough credit for how much they relate to just all of us in general. We are all employees, right? Yes, they're playing a game. They are getting paid in a lot of cases handsomely to do so, but we all want the same thing. We want our employer to hear our voice. We want meaningful change based off of the voice that we provide, and we would like them to be held accountable for their actions or lack of action, at least in this case. And this survey is great because of how the NFL itself functions, right? You've got a finite pool of players that tend to cycle between teams. Rosters turn over between 50 and 60% per team each year. So that means that players have a pretty diverse set of experiences from team to team. So they're not just giving their lived experience for that year. They are often comparing it to the experiences that they had with another team in the recent past. So we're getting a really good data set here. And my goal is to just parse out at least a little bit of what I found. This is the total tally. So the team rankings based off of all the scores put together, ranking ownership, team travel, family accommodations. And at the end, I will take you to the NFLPA website where you can take a little bit of a dive yourself, and also the most recent version, which is not on the NFLPA website because of that grievance ruling. So we are going to dive into what we've got. I have the teams. I've got the split from 2023 to 2026. If you see a star by the number, that means that that particular team made the playoffs that year. I tried to color code things as best as I could. We're just going to dive in. All right, so each team has a best ranking. That best ranking might not be all that great, but each team has a year in which they have had their highest mark. And in 2023, we had 11 teams who have had their highest mark to date. 2024, 8 teams had their highest mark to date. 2025 had 4 teams with their highest mark to date, and 2026 had 9. Looking year by year, we had 1, 2, 3 of the teams who had their best year in 2023 make the playoffs. We had 1, 2, 3, 4 of the 8 in 2024, and in 2025, one of the teams, one of the 4, and then 2026, 1, 2, 3, 4 of those 9 teams made the playoffs. So this isn't necessarily a great metric, right, for team success. Ultimately, players, coaches have to do that, and in a lot of ways, a team with a really low ranking, like the Kansas City Chiefs, they have Andy Reid as their coach throughout that time, and they won 2 Super Bowls, and we're going to get into that in a second. So the quick reaction that you're going to see on social media is teams blaming this as to why their teams are not as successful. It plays a role, right? And you can definitely go down the wormhole of parsing what this means. You can look at a whole bunch of different stuff. I did this relatively quick. I just looked for some meaningful things over the course of this 4-year stretch. But you can really do anything you want with this data set, which is kind of fun if you really want to go down that rabbit hole. But I can't really look too specific into that, especially because when we look at the Super Bowl champions, Kansas City Chiefs, they had a ranking of 29 after that season, 31 after they won in 24. Eagles were 22. So all those 3, bottom third. We just got our first outlier of a Super Bowl winner since the survey has been done, with the Seattle Seahawks this year being ranked in the top 5 at number 4. The teams that made the Super Bowl, again, not all that different. You had the Philadelphia Eagles, who in 2023, outside the top 10, pretty solid. 49ers, top 10, pretty good. Chiefs and Patriots were at 26 a pop the last 2 seasons, this one included. So again, you cannot just necessarily look at the ranking, the team overall ranking, as the echelon here, because when you take a look at some of the teams who have really high rankings, which we will in just a second, they have not had the same level of success. So ultimately, it is front office, your general manager, player selection, coaching, and certainly, most importantly, the players on the field who are going to carry you over the top. And as we can see, you can win in some less than ideal circumstances based off of these team ratings. The highest jump, this is the one that I really wanted to just take a peek at, and it is the Washington Commanders who made the highest jump from 2023 to now, vaulting themselves into the top 5, being ranked 3rd amongst the players that were there based off of it. Now, why that's important, they did undergo an ownership change, and it takes time, right? You want to hear how things are going. This ownership change took place after the 2024 season. Things improved immediately. So Dan Snyder was here for these 2. Things improved in year 1. They improved again in year 2. So again, when you are doing surveys like this on an annual basis, that is ultimately what you want. You want to see your scores go up, because that means not only are you being heard, right? People are listening. They're taking the changes to heart. They are providing that experience. That is validation in a way that that really improves the overall environment. So from 2023 to 2026, Washington Commanders had the highest jump. The sharpest drop is between the Dallas Cowboys and the New York Giants. The Dallas Cowboys were ranked in the top 5. They were number 5 in 2023, if we see that right here. To end of 2026, they have gone down to number 22. So that is now bottom 3rd. New York Giants were also in the top 10. They were ranked 8 2 years in a row, 23 and 4, and then at the end of this year going into 2026 are now also bottom 3rd at number 25. So again, we've got playoff appearances for both teams within that window. The Giants had theirs when they were in that top 10. The Cowboys have had 2 of them when they were in the top 10, top 5, hovering around it. And then there was a sharp drop coming out of 2025. So you will have to take a look and see what specifically changed, what made that number drop 12 points and 17 overall from that specific time for both teams. The Giants themselves had a pretty sharp drop after 2 years in the top 10, 23, 24, ranked 8, then dropping to 20, then dropping to 25. So those two found themselves dropping pretty sharp. The teams that improved each year, there was only one that I saw, and that was the Baltimore Ravens, 17, 15, 13, ending at 12 this year. That tracks. The Baltimore Ravens, of all the teams, do put a high emphasis on data analytics, and their ownership is very responsive to the players. So seeing that they had that consistent jump ending on a +5 from 2023 to now absolutely tracks with that organization as a whole. Okay. Teams that have appeared in the top 10. So this is what I wanted to just kind of look at, not just to show the good versus the bad, but that it's possible. And it's also possible for that to be taken away. The Buffalo Bills found themselves in there just once throughout the whole survey in the first year. The Dallas Cowboys found themselves in there twice throughout the survey in 2023 and 2025. The Green Bay Packers pretty consistently in the top 10 until this year. Again, you'll have to take a look at what the trends and patterns of that were. The Las Vegas Raiders, makes sense that they are in the top 10. They have one of the newer facilities in the league, so it would make sense that everything is bright, shiny, and new, and probably pretty state-of-the-art. Also, it is Las Vegas. The Miami Dolphins and the Minnesota Vikings have been consistently top 1, 2 throughout the entire survey. This is where we start to get into, again, some of the data being a little bit misleading. You would think that the teams that have the top team rankings would be the teams that would be the best in the league. Well, looking at the Raiders, the Dolphins, the Vikings, the Raiders have not been to the playoffs within that stretch. The Vikings and the Dolphins have been twice, with the Vikings being there 3 times. But that also hasn't translated to much success beyond that. The Dolphins have a new coach this year, as do the Raiders. So can't really put too much of a premium on that. The New Orleans Saints found themselves in the top 10 once, Giants twice, 49ers pretty consistently have found themselves in the top 10 or just outside of it as well. 24, really more of the same, some first-time appearances. The Bears make a first appearance in there. The Houston Texans have been consistently in the top 10. The Detroit Lions made their first appearance in the top 10 in 2025, and again repeating in 2026. The Falcons made their first appearance in 25 and 26. The Broncos made their first appearance in the top 10 in 2026. Another team that looks like they improved pretty much throughout the time. They had a bump. They went back down by 1, but went back up, so they didn't quite qualify. But again, right, you're seeing teams making meaningful changes. The Jaguars have bounced in and out. They were ranked in the top 5 in 24, plummeted to 18, back in the top 5 this year. The Seahawks jumped into the top 5. The Commanders vaulted into the top 5. So we are just kind of seeing here, right, nothing is forever. We see teams go up. We see teams go down. There's a lot of coaching changes. There's owners. Again, there was a grievance here where some owners didn't like that this survey was taking place and tried to fight against it. So we're seeing the jumping of the data. We're seeing also players' impressions of the organizations that they're with, which again is good. We had 4 teams who stayed in the top 10 the entire survey thus far. The Texans, the Raiders, the Dolphins, and the Vikings. So again, when we're looking at that kind of information, doesn't guarantee success. The Texans have been in the playoffs the last 3 years. The Raiders have not. The Vikings have seen the playoffs 3 times in that time, as the Dolphins have seen it twice. No championships between any of them, but they are clearly ranking high in the mind's eye of the players. Teams who appeared in the top 10 3 times, the Packers and the 49ers. The 49ers have seen a Super Bowl appearance during one of those times. The Packers have been in the playoffs 3 of those times as well the last 3 years. Teams that were in the top 10 twice: the Lions, the Jaguars, and the Giants. The Giants have kind of fallen off since 2023, organizationally, performance-wise. Jaguars have seen the playoffs twice in that time, 23 and 26, vaulting into the top 5 twice within that stretch. And the Lions have been in the top 5 or top 10 the last 2 years, making the playoffs 2 of the 4 within that time as well. We get to the teams who have never been better than the bottom third. Bottom third would be 22 to 32. And we've got the Cardinals, who have been consistently at the bottom. The Bengals, Cincinnati, who have been consistently at the bottom. The Chiefs, again, despite the Super Bowl championships, the playoff appearances, consistently at the bottom. The Patriots, consistently at the bottom, even with their championship game and Super Bowl appearance this year. Pittsburgh Steelers, you would think the model for stability, would not be near the bottom of the league in terms of rating, plummeting to last place this year. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers ranking near the bottom. So the trend, the pattern between these teams, the Cardinals and the Bengals, that tracks. The Chiefs and the Patriots, you would not assume. You wouldn't assume that with the Steelers. And with Tampa Bay, a little bit curious as to what is going on down there. Have made the playoffs 3 of the last 4 seasons. Something is working. Gonna have to see. Teams that have made the playoffs all 4 years, just the Bills and just the Eagles. So 2 teams, 2 franchises that have been pretty consistent. The Bills, if you're looking at their rating, they ended on a -7 split. Philadelphia Eagles on a -6 split from 23 to 26. Playoffs 3 of the 4 years. The Ravens, the Packers, the Chiefs, the Rams, the Chargers, the Steelers, the 49ers, the Bucks. The Ravens have improved every year. Packers had a quirky drop this year. The Lions have gotten better really every single year, but it's been static. Again, that's why it didn't count. They kind of stalled here. They did not improve, but they did stay in the top 10. The Chargers had a bump into the top 5 from 30. That is a massive jump. They had a new facility built. They were in a temp facility, which led to those low scores. Went back down to 15. The Rams have seen a relatively consistent, flat trend, although ending on a +6. The Steelers, again, near the bottom of the league, but playoffs 3 of the last 4 years. 49ers, playoffs 3 of the last 4 years, consistently in the top 10-ish range, and the Buccaneers, 3 of the 4 near the bottom. Playoffs 2 of the 4, Dallas Cowboys, Denver Broncos, Detroit Lions, Jacksonville Jaguars, Miami Dolphins, Minnesota Vikings, Seattle Seahawks. And Seattle just won the championship this year, vaulted into the top 10. But has always been pretty consistently near the top of the league, certainly the top half as it relates to the player experience. Vikings, again, top 2. Dolphins, top 2. Detroit Lions have found themselves kind of hovering around the top 10, broke through it in the last couple of years. Jaguars, top 5, 2 separate times with some inflow, with some fluctuation there. Broncos found themselves in the top 10 for the first time in the survey's history. That Walmart money is flowing. And the Dallas Cowboys as well. 2 playoff appearances, top 10 twice, top 5 once. The positive split. And this is, again, I'm looking at it purely from 2023 to where they are at in 2026. 12 teams have a positive split. The Ravens, the Bills, the Broncos, the Lions, the Jaguars, the Chiefs, the Chargers, the Rams, the Dolphins, the Jets, the Seahawks, and the Commanders. Why that is misleading? Again, you look at the positive splits. Yes, they made progress, but in the Chiefs' case, they're still near the bottom of the league. You look at the New York Jets. Yes, they made progress. They're still a terrible team. And you look at a team like the Jaguars where it went down, it went back up, it went down. So it's tough to use that as a metric, but we are going to give them the credit for the positive split. Again, looking at this, the negative split: Bills, Panthers, Bengals, Browns, Cowboys, Packers, Texans, Colts, Raiders, Vikings, Patriots, Saints, Giants, Eagles, Steelers, 49ers, Buccaneers, Titans. Again, misleading. Bills have been in the playoffs every single year, so that negative split. Doesn't really mean a whole lot. They're also going to be moving into a new stadium this year, so that could affect things next year. The Minnesota Vikings, that negative split means absolutely nothing. They just went from 1 to 2, so they are still viewed very highly in the eyes of the players. Texans have been top 10 the entire time. You just kind of fluctuate up and down there. Eagles have a Super Bowl, so that up and down doesn't really matter too much, and they've made the playoffs all the time. It really looks more like when you've got the teams that just make no progress, like the and I think, sorry, that number is incorrect. It's 18 teams, and then there's 2 teams with no movement really at all from the first year till now, and that is the Bears and the Cardinals. So this is really it. That's the survey in a nutshell, and just how some of the data looks. If you want to take a peek at it yourself, the NFLPA has the report cards up there. Just do a quick Google search. You can take a look at how they are grading some of the metrics, right? Treatment of families, food, locker room, strength coaches, travel, head coach, and owners. If you click on any of the teams, you will get the overall ranking, and then you can get some additional notes on top of that. You will only be able to get that from 2023 to 2025. If you want to look at the past rankings, you can click on it. You will have to click on something to get it to show. Click on that again. Just again, click on anything here to get it to show, and then you can kind of scroll up and see it there. So you can get a good composite look at that. To take a peek at the 2026 report cards, just look up for ESPN. It's got all of it. You can go team by team, take a look at everything there. Without the additional notes, we might have to wait on those, but you're going to get the grades, the overall rank, and then ultimately you can do with that information that you will. All right, so pretty much it on that. Always interesting. You see that it is about 750 plus players, and hey, that's a really good sample size. They're getting more participation. So, all right, let's return back to the camera. A lot of great information inside of that survey itself, and I'll say this again: it is not the reason why a team is winning or losing, even though that's going to be the discourse. That's going to be the social media discourse. What a survey like this does is it provides a snapshot. It provides information of what is going on behind the walls. And I can't stress the importance enough of surveys like this because, again, we should want our workplace to improve. We should want the people in charge to be held accountable, and we should want our voices heard. So when the NFL tried to squash this using a technicality that was flimsy at best, that is not good for workers in general. Yes, again, these are athletes, professional athletes getting paid well, but labor is labor. They are reporting to somebody. They are beholden to somebody to write their check, and the person writing their check is still trying to get one over on them as best as they can. So we should want surveys like this to exist. We should want transparency. We should want accountability as workers, as a labor force. So seeing this is great. I'm glad it got leaked. It was certainly interesting to look at the patterns and the trends and to draw whatever conclusions that you want to draw from it. So do that. Take a look at the links. Take a look at the history. Draw your own conclusions, right? That is how data like this is supposed to be parsed. Again, data doesn't lie. People lie using data, and we have to be cognizant of that. So as always, if anything resonates, give a like, subscribe, and engage, and hope you enjoyed. Have a good one.